Have they been doubling down on censorship in Bulloch County? Are what they doing constitutional? We'll get answers to those questions right now. Joining me is Jeremy Dice of Liberty Institute, and his group is part of what's going on in Bulloch County. Jeremy, thank you so much for stopping by today.
Well, thanks for having me.
What, in your opinion, is being censored at Bulloch County schools right now that is constitutionally protected?
Well, look, I think the Board of Education there in Bulloch County has created an environment over probably the last year or 6 months or so that has become a very hostile environment towards religious liberty in general. And most specifically, that's been directed at the teachers here, so that now we're at the point of having emails sent around by the administration to all of the staff and teachers in the county saying, hey, you can't have anything religious in your email signature line, and that includes not just a religious statement, but you may not specifically include Bible verses within your email signature line. You know, the irony of that, Bill, is that one of the administrators sending that very email out has a quote from Lou Holtz in his signature line, and yet apparently a football coach is allowed to have his line in the signature line of an email, but if you change that to the Apostle Paul, all of a sudden you're into forbidden territory. That's just not necessary, and it's not right. It's unconstitutional, and the school board should back off of this and restore full religious liberty to the teachers in Bulloch County.
You know, when we're talking about these emails with Bible verses in it, and you hear a lot of this from atheists and people who want the separation of church and state, they say, well, those emails are taxpayer funded. How do you respond to that?
Well, if they're opened up for personal use, and if you have one line from Lou Holtz, then you can't say, hey, look, we're going to allow Lou Holtz lines, but we're not going to allow Peter lines. If you open it up to one, you got to open it up to all. And this goes back again to the protections of the First Amendment. And this is not just something that Jeremy Dice is coming up with. This is coming from the Supreme Court of the United States, where they've said, look, just because teachers are on the public payroll does not make them second-class citizens in regard to their constitutional rights. They told us in Tinker v. Des Moines that teachers do not shed their constitutional rights to freedom of speech or expression at the schoolhouse gate. And not only that, they go on to say this has been the unmistakable holding of this court at that time in 1969 for 50 years. We're looking at now close to 200 years of history in which the Supreme Court has said repeatedly that teachers do not lose their First Amendment rights when they walk onto schoolhouse gates. Look, I had one teacher meeting with me in the cover of darkness because she's afraid of losing her job. She told me that she's been told several times by administrators that when she comes onto the county property to teach and do her job, the county Board of Education owns her, that she has no longer any constitutional right. That is in stark opposition to what the Supreme Court has termed unmistakable holdings of this court for years. It is the First Amendment principle of this country that teachers do not lose their First Amendment rights when they begin to teach, and it is an important principle that we uphold to make sure that they have the freedom to live, work, and do business according to their faith.
Are Bulloch County school teachers worried about losing their job? And what has the Liberty Institute learned about the report from Todd Starnes from Fox News in regard to removing Christmas cards from the school hallways? We'll get those answers from Jeremy Dice of Liberty Institute right now. You sent an official letter to the Bulloch County School Board, and in it you talked a lot about unlawful viewpoint discrimination. Tell us a little bit more about that and how Bulloch County School is engaging in it.
Well, viewpoint discrimination is just a fancy legal term for saying, hey, look, I'm going to support one position but not another position, right? So you can take I can believe in something. Take this instance with the Lou Holtz email, for instance, or the signature line of that email. I believe this viewpoint is okay because it's uttered by Lou Holtz, but if the same viewpoint was uttered by Jesus Christ, then all of a sudden that becomes unlawful and wrong, and I can't put it in there. Well, the Supreme Court has said to the Bulloch County Board of Education, you can't do that. You can't say that I will uphold this viewpoint but not that viewpoint. If you permit one viewpoint, you've got to permit all viewpoints. That's the beauty of our country. And the Supreme Court goes on to say several times things like the vigilant protection of constitutional freedoms is nowhere more vital than in the community of American schools. Our nation is deeply committed, it said, to the safeguarding academic freedom. It's an important principle in our country, not just that American citizens and citizens of South Georgia have First Amendment protections, but that the teachers in our schools have First Amendment protections. The Board of Education, in capitulating, I think twice now to the Americans United for Separation of Church and State, have simply created an environment where teachers and staff members are now feeling hostility towards any expression of religious liberty.
What have you learned about the removal of the Christmas card display? I know that Todd Starnes originally reported on that, and the school board has said that, well, this was accommodating a privacy interest of a single teacher. What have you found out about this, and where do you see this going?
Well, I found out that nobody can find that single teacher. That's one thing. I was stopped actually in the parking lot outside of the board meeting last Thursday night by a teacher who was at that school, and I'll leave her nameless because, again, they're just so worried up there about being found out. But she said, look, I've been making it my goal to try to go around and find out who this one supposed teacher is, and I cannot find that teacher. They're nowhere to be found. But look, if this were in fact the case, that there was an actual privacy issue, fine. We understand that privacy issues in this day and age especially. Then the solution to that is not to censor all speech. The solution to that is to remove the one private speech that doesn't want to have made public. We don't need to censor all forms of channels of communication simply because one person may have an objection to that. It's not necessary. And we could have gotten around that very easily. We could have avoided a lot of this controversy, but it didn't come down to the one teacher that has the problem. This is the problem that is symptomatic at the Board of Education level. If they're wanting to support religious liberty, they will find a way to support religious liberty. They're not celebrating the religious liberty right now in Bulloch County schools. They're finding ways to censor it, and that's wrong.
Liberty Institute sent an official letter to Bulloch County schools. Have they responded, or will they respond? We'll get those answers from Jeremy Dice of Liberty Institute right now. Now, this official letter that you sent to Bulloch County School, you are expecting a reply from them. Have you received one, and is there a deadline for them to reply to you? And if they don't reply, what happens next?
Well, the deadline is 10 days from when I gave it to them, which was last Thursday at the Board of Education meeting. So I guess the clock is ticking. And no, I have not heard from the Board of Education, either from their attorney or from the board members themselves. I talked to two or three of them after the meeting on Thursday night, and I said, I understand you're having an informational meeting, at which point your attorney is going to come and lecture the public about what the First Amendment really means. I said, we're happy to come and kind of provide supplemental authority if you want to, in that point too, on the 19th, if that would be helpful to them. Look, we're looking for ways that we can avoid any kind of unnecessary litigation. The Board of Education certainly has infringed and created a very hostile environment towards the religious liberty of our clients. And we're advising them of their many options, and that includes filing a lawsuit. But frankly, I'm the weird attorney that likes to be in a courtroom, but we don't have to go there. And people don't typically like to be in a courtroom. So let's try to avoid this if we can. And so we've given them a very, very simple off-ramp on the road to litigation, and that's very simply let the teachers and the staff of the Board of Education have free religious expression within their email signature lines, and then make an affirmative statement affirming the religious liberty rights of teachers and staff in Bulloch County schools within 30 days after answering this letter. So it's a very simple thing. We're happy to help them draft that kind of a statement, to have a full, unfettered right to religious liberty while at the schools.
Jeremy Dice of Liberty Institute on the line with me right now. Jeremy, before I let you go here, how can people find out more about Liberty Institute, your website and information, and what you guys are all about?
Well, Liberty Institute is a nationwide religious liberty law firm that is dedicated to restoring religious liberty across America. We work in cases like this one. Frankly, oftentimes we're on the side of the Board of Education, trying to fend off attacks from groups like Freedom from Religion Foundation, Americans United for Separation of Church and State, the American Humanist Association, and several other atheist or agnostic organizations that are trying to create more hostility towards religious liberty across this country. It's rare that we actually are fighting against the Board of Education themselves in this case. But I would encourage your listeners to go to our website at libertyinstitute.org, libertyinstitute.org. There they can read the letter that I sent to the Board of Education. They can read some of my comments that I provided last week if they weren't able to be at the board meeting. And, of course, you can also find us on Facebook, on our Facebook page there as well. But, religious liberty is our first liberty, And I want to encourage the citizens of Southeast Georgia, as I've gotten to know them just a little bit from being there for a couple days last week, to continue to push back, to stand up against people that say you don't have the right to exercise your faith in public. Be proud to be a person of faith in public, and don't let them push you back, not even 1 inch.
Jeremy Dice, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you, Bill.